The heart-touching and incredible story of Hajar. In the middle of nothing, a woman stood. In her arms was a baby. Her lips were cracked, her eyes were full of tears, but her gaze was strong. Sometimes destiny begins with a mother's tears. Sometimes the birth of faith begins with a baby's cry. And sometimes a miracle grows where nothing exists. This is not only the story of a mother. This is the story of surrender, patience, and endless trust in Allah. This is the story of the Kaaba, the story of the family line of our Prophet, the story of Hajar. We will tell how a single drop of water turned into a whole ummah. You are watching Religious Story TV. Like, comment, and subscribe so this video can reach others like you. If you are ready, let's begin. There are different historical reports about the family and past of Hajar. Some historians say she came from a noble family, while others say she was a servant in the palace of the king of Egypt. At that time, Egypt was a great and very advanced civilization, and the pharaoh's palace was home to countless servants and maids. In ancient Egyptian society, slaves and servants, especially those who served in the palace, had a different status. Hajar was one of those who grew up in such an environment. Some reports describe her as the daughter of a noble family, a princess. Others describe her as one of the many servants working in the palace for different duties. In the end, only Allah knows her true origin. But what is certain is that Hajar was a righteous woman who feared Allah. She was known for her unshakable faith in Allah, her trust in the divine plan, and her full submission to His will. These qualities gave her an honored and sacred place throughout history. Hajar was a woman who held a very special place in the Quran. She was not a prophet, but she was pure. Usually, when you look at the stories of prophets, you see that they, or those who believed in them, were rejected, and often they fell into the hands of oppressors and suffered. For example, Yusuf alayhi salam was the most beloved son of his father, yet he was thrown into slavery and prison. Most of the time, prophets were left at the mercy of others. The story of Hajar, however, is very different. She was, on the contrary, left in the care of a prophet and his wife, but thrown into a whirlpool of uncertainties and had to find her own way. Her story is one from which we can take lessons of faith and certainty in times of deep uncertainty. In the end, we see that there is not a single day in the year when Hajar is not remembered and honored. A woman who could have died forgotten and rejected has become one of the most honored women in history. People constantly remember her patience and her worship. The Prophet ﷺ said a wonderful hadith about Hajar. One day you will go to Egypt. Show special love to its people because they are from the descendants of our mother Hajar. These people are special because they come from the lineage of our mother Hajar. So how does this woman Hajar enter the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Ibrahim, the prophet chosen by Allah, was tested many times with his faith and patience. He traveled to different lands with his noble wife Sarah, spreading the message of Allah. Sarah was a righteous woman. When Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife Sarah came to Egypt, there was a pharaoh there. At that time, Egypt was wide and powerful because of the Nile River's blessing. Even in times of shortage, Egypt had plenty of food, But the Pharaoh of that time was a cruel ruler. In a long hadith in Bukhari, it is told that this Pharaoh liked beautiful women and would take them for himself and kill their husbands. He had an extreme desire for married women. He was perverse in this way. When Prophet Ibrahim and Sarah arrived in Egypt, their grace and beauty reached the Pharaoh's palace. Hearing about Sarah's beauty, the Pharaoh ordered his soldiers to bring her to the palace. Ibrahim knew very well that the Pharaoh was cruel. If the Pharaoh learned that Sarah was his wife, he could harm them. When asked about Sarah, Ibrahim said, "She is my sister." This was not exactly a lie, because believers are like brothers and sisters in faith. So in that sense, she was his sister. Hearing that Sarah was Ibrahim's sister calmed the Pharaoh a little, but because of her beauty, he still wanted to keep Sarah near him in the palace. He liked her. When he came close to her in the palace, Sarah prayed. She prayed, "O Allah, you know I obey you and your messenger, and I follow the truth. I am not a believer only because I'm Ibrahim's wife. You know that I am truly a believing woman. I obey the Prophet who is on the truth. If you know this about me, protect me from this man." As soon as Sarah made this prayer, the Pharaoh suddenly became like paralyzed and froze. Something began to happen in his body. Sarah prayed again, "O Allah, if he dies here, people will think I killed him, and they will kill me too. So do not let him die, only stop him from touching me." So the Pharaoh was frozen and could not touch Sarah, but he did not die because Sarah prayed, "Do not let him die." If he had died then, and people found him dead, everything would have been over for Sarah and Ibrahim. Later, the Pharaoh's state relaxed and he could move again. The Pharaoh tried to approach her again. Sarah prayed to Allah once more. This time his trembling became stronger. After the third time, the Pharaoh called his soldiers and said, "This woman is not an ordinary woman." Then he ordered, "Give her gifts, and also give her a maid. Take her away from here and leave me in peace." The Pharaoh now understood that Sarah was not just any woman, but a righteous servant of Allah under his protection. At that time, kings would give gifts to their special guests. The giving of Hajar as a servant to Sarah was part of this tradition. Perhaps the Pharaoh thought that by letting her stay with these righteous people, he might gain blessing. That maid was Hajar. In fact, her name was not originally Hajar. The word Hajar means gift, reward, or offering. Sarah smiled and said, "Allah protected me from the oppressor and gave me Hajar as a gift." Sarah took Hajar with her and returned to Prophet Ibrahim. In this way, Hajar, who once lived in the Pharaoh's palace, became part of the sacred household of Prophet Ibrahim. At first, Hajar was not a believer. This is not the story of a prophet taking a slave, but the story of a servant from Pharaoh's palace. Hajar did not need to know who Ibrahim was at that time. In her eyes, Sarah truly seemed like someone special, just as Pharaoh had thought. While traveling with Ibrahim and Sarah, Hajar witnessed their faith and their devotion to Allah. This woman from the Egyptian palace stepped into a new life, where her character and virtues gained higher value, and with her own will, she believed. Just as Sarah was firm in her faith, Hajar was also firm in hers. She became a believing woman. As time passed, Sarah, the wife of Prophet Ibrahim, grew old and could not have children. She herself offered Prophet Ibrahim to marry Hajar. She fully believed that Allah had promised children to Ibrahim's family line, but she was barren. According to some reports, she made this offer sincerely, so that Allah's promise would be fulfilled and Ibrahim would have descendants. This act showed her sacrifice, her selflessness, and her submission to Allah. After the marriage, a sacred bond was formed between Prophet Ibrahim and Hajar, a bond that left a lasting mark on future generations. At this point, Hajar gained an even greater spiritual role and importance. After her marriage to Prophet Ibrahim, Allah blessed them. Soon, Hajar became pregnant. The birth of her son, the baby Ismail alayhi salam, was nothing short of a miracle. It was a moment of great blessing and holiness. This birth did not only bring great joy to the family of Prophet Ibrahim, but it was also